Making headlines this hour. President Dr. Mohamed Muiz ratifies amendments to the Drugs Act, introducing the death penalty for individuals convicted of smuggling drugs into the Maldives. The Ministry of Tourism and Environment announces a significant leap forward in the nation's renewable energy goals with the successful installation of 783 kilowatts of solar photovoltaic PV systems in households across the Maldives this year. And the Maldives secures a decisive conservation victory, leading a global initiative to strengthen protections for whale sharks at the 20th Conference of the Parties to the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to PSM News in English with me, Abdullah Ahil. And now the news in detail. In a significant move to combat the escalating issue of drug trafficking, President Dr. Mohamed Muiz ratifies amendments to the Drugs Act, introducing the death penalty for individuals convicted of smuggling drugs into the Maldives. The legislation, passed overwhelmingly by Parliament last week with 65 votes in favor, also imposes stringent penalties for drug importation, trafficking, and illicit enrichment. The amendments, which stipulate the death penalty in cases involving possession of more than 350 grams of cannabis, over 250 grams of deformin, or more than 100 grams of other controlled substances. Crucially, the death penalty can be applied upon a person's entry into the Maldives if they are found to be smuggling drugs. However, the application of the death penalty is subject to a unanimous verdict from a Supreme Court bench. Should the court not reach a consensus on capital punishment, offenders will face life imprisonment coupled with a hefty fine. The amendment also restricts the possibility of pardons or commutation for those sentenced to death or life imprisonment for drug smuggling, effectively barring parole for such individuals. Additionally, the amendments aim to bolster the system for providing comprehensive treatment to drug addicts and facilitate their reintegration into society. Beyond the severe penalties, the bill introduces measures to control novel psychoactive substances, introduce additional drug-related offenses and penalties, enhance drug addiction treatment programs, and review the operational rules of drug courts. A notable provision within the amended act mandates the confiscation of property and money seized in connection with drug offenses, transfers this power from the State Finance Act to the court system. This will result in the forfeiture of assets utilized in or derived from criminal activities, including direct or indirect proceeds of crime. President Dr. Muiz has also approved a legislative amendment ushering in significant changes to the benefits and privileges afforded to the nation's past leaders and extending new provisions to former vice presidents. Under the newly ratified law, the office expenses of former presidents will now be subject to deduction. Additionally, the financial benefits for a former president will be suspended if they are elected for a second term or assume any other public office. The act also stipulates that protection and security provisions are not required for former presidents during periods when they reside. Furthermore, President Muiz has ratified the Zakat bill to establish the legal framework governing the Zakat system in the Maldives, ensuring the effective organization and regulation of the payment, receipt, and distribution of Zakat in order to fulfill the objectives prescribed in Islam. Under the act, the national Zakat policy, including the collection and distribution of Zakat assets, shall be determined by the President on the advice of the minister responsible for matters relating to Islam. The President shall also establish a Zakat Council to advise the minister and the Maldives Zakat House on the administration of the Zakat system. Lastly, President Dr. Muiz has ratified the amendment to the Tourism Act to establish a legislative framework for leasing areas for tourist resort development and for the establishment and operation of tourism training resorts, and to introduce the regulatory provisions required to support these developments. A key feature of the amendment is the formal recognition of tourism training resorts as tourist facilities with defined procedures for their lease, development, and management. It further stipulates that within inhabited islands or city jurisdictions, only tourist guest houses or tourist hotels may be developed. Revenue generated for the state from such establishments must be allocated to the respective island or city council. The Ministry of Tourism and Environment announces a significant leap forward in the nation's renewable energy goals with the successful installation of 783 kilowatt of solar photovoltaic PV systems in households across the Maldives this year under the Landmark program. Launched in January, the initiative aims to empower citizens with access to solar power, thereby reducing household electricity bills and decreasing reliance on fuel-generated energy. The Mage Solar Program, championed by President Dr. Mohamed Muiz, commenced its first installation in Philadu, Ha Alif Atoll, marking the initial phase of a broader rollout. To date, 783 kilowatt of solar PV systems have been deployed in households across 10 atolls. The ministry has also revealed plans for an additional 1.5 megawatt of solar PV systems and is currently in the process of opening tenders for a further 7 megawatts, demonstrating a robust commitment to expanding solar energy adoption. This program facilitates the acquisition of solar PV systems through utility companies on an installment basis, operating under the net metering principle. The program is set to benefit 748 households directly, with the overarching objective of significantly reducing public expenditure on electricity and maximizing the utilization of renewable energy resources. This effort represents a crucial step towards achieving the government's ambitious target of sourcing 33% of the nation's electricity from renewable sources. The Maldives secures a decisive conservation victory, leading a global initiative to strengthen protections for whale sharks at the 20th Conference of the Parties to the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, or CITES. Delegates adopted a consensus, a proposal to transfer the species from Appendix 2 to Appendix 1, a measure that bans the commercial international trade of whale sharks and their parts. The Ministry of Tourism and Environment noted that Appendix 1 listings are reserved for species facing an imminent threat of extinction. Under the stricter rules, the cross-border movement of whale shark specimens is prohibited, with exceptions permitted only for non-commercial purposes such as scientific research. The proposal, co-sponsored by 16 other countries, underscores the Maldives' determination to protect a species central to its tourism-driven economy and ecological identity. Officials noted that while whale sharks, classified as endangered by the International Union for Conservation and Nature, or IUCN, already enjoy national protections, the CITES decision provides an additional safeguard. By embedding protections in binding international law, the measure strengthens the species' defense against habitat loss and climate change, reinforcing global efforts to ensure its survival. Australia Award Scholarships is awarded to 20 Maldivian students to pursue master's degrees at Australian universities. The scholarship certificates were presented at a special ceremony by Minister of Social and Family Development, Dr. Aishat Shiham, who is also an Australian alumnus. According to the Australian High Commission in the Maldives, the students will begin their studies next year across a range of fields, including finance, economics, social work, law, cybersecurity, policy studies, development studies, and oceanography. The High Commission noted that the number of scholarships for Maldivian students has increased significantly, up from 8 in 2022 to 20 this year. The event also marked the 10th anniversary of the vibrant Maldives Australia Alumni Association. Since the 1960s, more than 750 Maldivian students have pursued higher education in Australia through scholarships as well as self-funded study. Construction commences on the new Gaddu Hospital. The practical work was inaugurated by Minister of Health Abdullah Nazim Ibrahim at a ceremony held in Gaddu, Gafdal Atoll. The project includes the development of a 30-bed, 2-story health facility, a 1-story service block, and a 2-story accommodation block. The project, awarded to Maldives Transport and Contracting Company, or MTCC, is scheduled for completion within 600 days at a cost of $6.6 million. With a population of about 2,700, health services are currently provided in Gaddu from the island's health center. The new hospital is expected to significantly expand healthcare services on the island. We now bring you the call to prayer for Isha.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدًا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وابعثه مقامًا محمودًا الذي وعدته وارزقنا شفاعته برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
ಡಿಜಿಟಲ್ ವೈಲೆನ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಎಗಿಸಾವು ಮೇಹಾಗೆ ನಫ್ಸಾಣಿ ದೊಳೆಯೋಕಮ ಅಸರ್ ಕೊರುವಾಕಮ್ಮೆ ಎಹೆಂಕಮ ಮಿಫದಕಮ ದಿಮಾವೆಜ್ಜನಮ ಮತ್ತು ಮಿಫದಕಮಕ ಮಗ್ಫೈವಾಕಮ ದಿಮಾವೆಜ್ಜನಮ ಏಕಣ ಏಕಮ ಡಿಯಲ್ ಕೊರುಮಗ ಬದವಗ ಇತುಬಾರು ಹೊರಿ ಫರಾತಕ ಹಿಸ್ಸಾ ಕೊರವ್ವ
Welcome back to our English news broadcast. We continue with the local headlines. The Election Commission of Maldives, or ECM, announces that only 4 of the Maldives registered political entities are eligible to receive state funding from next year's budget, having met the legally mandated minimum membership threshold of 10,000 members. This marks a shift from the previous budgetary cycle, which included 5 parties. The 4 parties confirmed by the ECM to have exceeded the 10,000 member limit as of the 25th of November, the date of budget approval, are the ruling People's National Congress, or PNC, the main opposition Maldivian Democratic Party, or MDP, the Jumhuri Party, or JP, and the Maldives Development Alliance, or MDA. Crucially, Adalat Party, which had received funding in the current year, is set to be removed from the list of recipients. ECM data from June showed the AP falling short of the required threshold, registering 8,844 members at the time. According to the Political Parties Act, 0.01% of the state budget is allocated annually to political parties that maintain a minimum of 10,000 registered members. While 9 parties are currently registered, most fail to meet this high standard. The confirmed eligibility of 4 parties represents a slight increase from the previous count in June, when only 3 parties had officially secured 10,000 members. The latest allocation details highlight the considerable gap between the largest and smallest beneficiaries. The ruling party, the PNC, which boasts the highest membership, received the largest portion of the current year's budget, followed by the MDP. National airline Maldivian enters into an interline agreement with Air India, a strategic move intended to strengthen transportation ties and improve passenger services across regional and domestic routes. The accord will allow travelers arriving on Air India flights to connect directly to 16 destinations within Maldivian's domestic network. The arrangement is expected to help Maldivian capture a larger share of passengers originating from major Indian metropolitan centers, including New Delhi and Mumbai. Ibrahim Iyas, managing director of Maldivian, described the partnership as a milestone in the carrier's efforts to decentralize travel beyond Male. He said the collaboration would deliver broad benefits to tourism and trade sectors in both countries. Nipun Agarwal, chief commercial officer of Air India, underscored the Maldives' standing as a premier destination for Indian travelers and said the agreement significantly expands access across the island nation. Officials from Maldivian concluded that the cooperation will optimize network connectivity and elevate the customer experience by streamlining travel logistics and offering more reliable options for passengers exploring the country's diverse destinations. Public Service Media, or PSM, begins airing the audition rounds of Mike Masters Jr., a reality television program created to showcase the talents of young presenters. Developed in partnership with the Maldives Media Institute, or MMI, and Television Maldives, or TVM, the initiative offers children aged 8 to 14 a national platform to demonstrate skills in hosting and public speaking. From an initial pool of 192 registrants, 52 candidates were selected through a pre-casting process to advance to the televised auditions. The premiere episode was broadcast on the 5th of December, with the second installment scheduled for the 12th of December. The primary competition phase will commence on the 19th of December, marking the formal progression of the contest. The format combines judges' scores with public voting, which will open during the mid-month broadcast. The rewards extend beyond the immediate contest. Top performers will secure a one-year contract with Public Service Media and academic placement at the Maldives Media Institute. Winners will also receive consumer electronics and monetary prizes. Taking a look at international business, U.S. stocks closes out the trading week with slight gains as the latest flurry of economic data kept elevated expectations for a Federal Reserve interest rate cut next week intact. In the wake of the 43-day government shutdown, market participants have been digesting delayed economic data as the backlog slowly dwindles while also looking to secondary indicators to gauge the health of the economy.
Yeah, the S&P is really a stone's throw away from a new high. And one of the things that people are not talking about, healthcare has just been on a tear. XLV, that healthcare ETF, was really dead in the water, and just in the last month, really souped up. You had big numbers today, by the way, from Ulta Beauty. That were huge numbers. Foxconn came out with good numbers, very good for NVIDIA. Just a reiteration that this AI trade is real and that we probably are in the early innings. I think those are probably the big things that we're seeing today.
Delayed data from the Commerce Department showed consumer spending, which accounts for more than two-thirds of economy activity, rose 0.3% in September to match the estimate of economists polled by Reuters after a downwardly revised 0.5% gain in August. In addition, the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index increased 0.3% after gaining 0.3% in August, the Bureau of Economic Analysis said. In the 12 months through September, the PCE price index advanced 2.8% after rising 2.7% in August. Both were in line with forecasts. Markets were pricing in an 87.2% chance of a 25 basis point rate cut at this month's Fed meeting, according to CME's FedWatch tool, although the meeting is expected to have a large number of dissenting voters over concerns about persistent inflation. Expectations for a cut were below 30% 2 weeks ago until several Fed officials voiced support for a rate reduction. Looking at foreign affairs, Foreign Minister Johan Wadeful refuses external advice on domestic matters and underlined Germany's autonomy, addressing criticisms from the U.S. administration while reaffirming that the United States remains Berlin's most important NATO ally. Speaking at a press conference in Berlin alongside Icelandic Foreign Minister Þorgerður Katrín Gunnarsdóttir, Wadeful stressed that domestic issues are exclusively governed by Germany's constitutional framework. The German minister emphasized that matters such as freedom of expression and societal organization do not require outside guidance. The remarks come in the context of the U.S. national security strategy released on Friday, which highlights shifting U.S. priorities under a framework of flexible realism and warned Europe of civilizational erasure without policy adjustments. Wadeful maintained that while the transatlantic alliance is based on shared values, Germany's constitutional order governs its internal affairs. Update on sports. The 2026 World Cup kicks off on June 11th, with joint hosts Mexico playing South Africa at the Azteca Stadium, venue of the 1970 and 1986 finals, followed by South Korea against a playoff winner after the draw was made. South Africa are appearing for the first time since 2010 when they drew with Mexico in the opening match but failed to reach the knockout stage. Fellow hosts the United States and Canada will join the party the next day against Paraguay and a playoff winner, possibly Italy, respectively in Los Angeles and Toronto, while five-time winners Brazil will play Morocco, semi-finalists in 2022, Haiti and Scotland. The Scots are appearing in the finals for the first time since 1998 when they lost to Brazil in the opening game. France's first game will be against Senegal in a repeat of one of the biggest tournament upsets when the Africans stunned the then holders in their first game of the 2002 tournament. England will start against Croatia, who beat them in the 2018 semi-finals, and also face Panama, who they beat 6-1 in the group stage in the same tournament. The teams outside the hosts group will have to wait until Saturday to find out the venues and kickoff times for their games after FIFA attempts to optimize venues and kickoff times relating to the various worldwide TV markets. A newly introduced seeding system ensures that the current top four in the world, Spain, holders Argentina, 2022 runners-up France and England, cannot meet until the semi-final stage if they win their groups. The 48 teams, including 6 still-to-be decided playoff winners, were decided into 12 groups of 4 to produce a mammoth 104-match schedule across 16 cities in the US, Canada, and Mexico, culminating in the final in New Jersey on the 19th of July. Venues and kickoff times will be announced in another globally broadcast event on Saturday, though even that is subject to adjustment in March once the 6 playoff qualification spots have been filled. And that's all the news we have for today. We'll be back with any further updates. Until then, I'm Abdullah Ahil from PSM News.